just finished watching the Netflix show Special, so I thought I would give it a short review, because I guess it's very on brand for me, to the extent that I have a brand. I didn't want to watch the show because when I saw like a very short ad for it that started on Netflix, I immediately assumed that it was a show about a non-disabled person pretending to be disabled to get like, disability or like a free lunch or whatever, and the whole show would be about how great it is to be disabled and how disabled people have such an easy time. So I like immediately closed the window and was like, I hate this. Anyway, I accidentally saw part of an interview with the creator, star, and I immediately realized he actually had CP, and he was actually talking about like real shit. Like, I sort of tuned in the middle of this interview where he was talking about this clip from the show where like the main character, who is like an ambulatory guy with CP, is like looking at this guy who's in a wheelchair and being like super jealous, and he's like, oh, it'd be so easy if like you were unambiguously disabled instead of like disabled but able to walk. And the poor like creator star was like being interviewed by a non-disabled person who was like asking him to explain this, and then she asked him what the word ableism meant. So anyway, I decided I wanted to watch the show after all. I guess I hate to say representation matters, but like it's not like if something is really bad it's good because it's a representation. But I think the thing about the show is it's quite spare. Like, it has 8 15-minute episodes, so it feels very rushed, and it's also just like Ryan O'Connell, the guy who created it, like didn't have experience creating a show, and he wrote all of it by himself, and he also starred in it even though he's not a professional actor because it's based on his memoir, so I guess he was sort of the best person to star in it, but again isn't really an actor. So it's definitely like it doesn't like blow you away because of that, even though like he is a good writer and he manages as an actor. But like I just thought it was like, it's pretty amazing to watch because I feel like it addresses like a lot of real things in a disabled person's life that I've like never seen in a TV show or anything before. Like the thing that I mentioned, but also like a big theme is kind of like his relationship with his mom, which is really codependent, and his mom like doesn't believe that he can live on his own at age 28 because it's hard for him to do stuff like tie his shoes and like open boxes and open envelopes, and so they have a lot of like struggle around that. One of the awkward things about the show, honestly, I feel like the biggest flaw in the show is the actress who plays his mom is really young and attractive, and like the way she talks to him comes off as if she's hitting on him, so that doesn't like, yeesh, not the best casting, I guess. But his mom kind of has her own storyline about how she sort of needs to have her own life and not just be kind of a codependent mom of a disabled adult son. Sort of the main theme, which apparently is based on the creator's real life, although it's crazy that non-disabled people would believe this, but I guess they would, is that he went to start at a new job and he felt ashamed of having CP, and so he told people that all his CP symptoms were just caused by a car accident, and everyone believed him, and it made him feel like better and more normal because like, I don't know, it seemed like easier for him to like describe it as something that like happened to him as an adult, and it didn't make him feel so like stigmatized, which I can totally get. And I also feel like the show kind of like sort of like lampshades the fact that like it's not really that different, and like it wasn't really changing his life that much that people didn't know he had CP. It just kind of makes him feel different. Yeah, I think because the show is so spare, there's like so little that they're able to like really show. So I think sort of like to the extent that there's a conflict in the show, it's just kind of about how like the main character like really struggles with being disabled. He's also gay, and he's like never had sex, and ends up going to a sex worker because he really like, yeah, this was another kind of weird aspect of the show. Like, I had read in an interview that the creator was like, I really wanted to have like realistic gay sex, and like I didn't want it to like pan away or something like that, which is fine, but like the gay sex scene was so like weirdly dry and educational that yeah, it was very sweet, but it didn't come off as very like sexy or even like emotional. Like, it was like an IKEA manual on how to have gay sex. I mean, that said, like, I don't want to be too down on the show because, like, I really liked it, and I think, like, to me, like, sort of the idea of something being, like, totally perfect and, like, professional, especially if it is, like, his first time making a show, which it is, like, the idea of something being perfect isn't as good as, like, saying something really unique and true that nobody has ever said. And watching the show, like, there were so many things where just could really relate to the way that the main character feels. And, like, I think the show does a good job of showing how just because somebody feels, like, really different and bad in, like, this deep way that you think you can, like, never shake because, like, you're disabled and you're, like, so different. Like, in some ways that is true. In some ways it's really not true, but it can still really, like, have a huge impact on your life if that's how you feel. I don't know. I just really recommend it. It has kind of, like, he worked at Thought Catalog, which I'm not that familiar with, but I guess it's kind of like a both gender, all gender version of Exo Jane. So I guess it's this website where people wrote really personal essays, and that's where he got started as a writer. So the show is basically about him working at, like, a Thought Catalog parody, and it's kind of about how all the staff have to try to, like, write personal essays about, like, their deepest traumas that will be, like, good clickbait. So ironically, I read a really terrible online personal essay that was this guy saying why the show special was bad, and, like, I clicked on it because, like, you know, the thing that clickbaited me in was like, oh, like, you know, as a disabled gay man, like, I should like Special, but it's actually really bad, and, like, let me tell you why. So I clicked on it, and the article was like, well, I've never actually seen Special, but I watched the trailer. And it seems like the trailer is saying that if you have CP and you say that you don't, everything will be great. But let me tell you, one time I went on a date with a guy who said that he wasn't disabled, but he was. And this was such a bad experience that I have to write an essay about it, like, years later. And also, I'm going to use it to say why this show, which I haven't actually seen, is problematic. I think the only kind of issue with the show is the way it treats a deaf character. Spoiler alert, the main character Ryan gets put on a blind date with a deaf guy, and I mean, I think he has a very negative reaction, and he doesn't see the deaf guy as, like, someone that he wants to be put on a date with, and he feels insulted that he's on a date with him. You know, I feel like in the world of the story, this was intended to kind of show, like, what a jerk he is and, like, what a negative opinion he has of his own disability, that he doesn't want to, like, go on a date with someone that he sees as disabled. So, yeah, I don't think it had bad intentions or anything like that, but it still might be kind of, like, it's still kind of uncomfortable to watch. So I can see why people might not want to watch it because of that. Yeah, in general, I thought it was good, and it's just the fact that it's so short and kind of spare. It kind of feels like a first draft. I think, and I thought this in interviews with him too, like, Ryan O'Connell is, like, very funny and quippy, but, like, sometimes, you know, it's kind of like the Diablo Cody phenomenon, and, like, because he's, like, the only person writing it, like, sometimes the dialogue is just, like, quip, 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 and it's not so much, like, it doesn't always feel real because of that. But I still thought the show was, like, it's just really cool to watch if you're disabled, that it, like, addresses these things that you don't usually see in media. And actually, like, I regret this review coming off the way it did because I don't want to sound very critical of something that I think is, like, so special, like, just in terms of the fact that it has a really unique perspective. And I don't mean that in, like, a shitty representation way where you're just like, oh, like, you're so, like, diverse, and, like, there's no other writers like you, so I'm gonna say you're a good writer. Because, like, it's not like that. It's like, honestly, like, any disabled person could go and, like, work as a writer on a TV show and, like, not write disabled stories. But, like, it does take, like, guts and intelligence